Yeah. So our first presenter is Shohib Bashir. He's a research scholar at IIT Roorkee, Uttarakhand. So over to Shohib Bashir.
Yeah, ma'am. Just a minute. I'm sharing my slides.
Yeah. Before that, I'll just call out the name of all the presenters to see if everyone is present. So Shohib Bashir is present. Prasenjit Singha, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Jyoti Priyadarshini,
Yeah,
Swagath S. Senan. Okay. Maria Sibi.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ankita Chaudhary.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Sangeeta.
yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Let's begin. Shoaib, over to you.
Before we begin, Shivangi, are we keeping? Yeah. So are
Oh,
we
yeah.
keeping? Just a second, Shoaib.
Wait,
Are
just a
we? Yeah. Are we keeping the question answer session right at the end or after every presentation?
after every presenter, we'll have only 3 minutes for discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, you can begin.
And you will be keeping the track of the time, right?
Yes, I'm the one who's keeping the track.
Okay. Fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Shoaib.
Yeah, ma'am. Just a minute. I'm just. Ma'am, is my screen is visible to you?
Yes, it is visible, Shoaib.
Yeah. Shall I start, ma'am?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My today's presentation topic is cultural practices in medicine and postmodern sensibility. A reading of Alice Walker's Possessing the Secret of Joy. So this is the basic introduction about medical humanities. So medical humanities can be defined as an interdisciplinary and increasingly international endeavor that draws on the creative and intellectual strength of diverse disciplines, including literature, art, creative writing, drama, film, music, philosophies, ethical decisions making, anthropology, and history in pursuits of medical education goal. They employ methods, concepts, and content in teaching health professions and students to understand and critically reflect on their profession with the intention of becoming more self aware and human practitioner. Their activities are interdisciplinary in theories and practice and necessarily nurture collaboration among scholars, healers, and patients. So, literature is the source of information about the nature and source of human emotions, behavior, and narratives of illness. Teaching of history of medicines develops humility and aids in avoiding the repetitions of mistakes of the past. It also raises research and the therapeutic skepticism. So now coming on to postmodern feminism, I'm just introducing these self and then I will use interlink these two different concepts. So postmodern feminism, in a very brief introduction, postmodern feminism is a new branch of feminism that strives for the equality for women within the category of women. While doing so, they take into the accounts the differences among the women on the basis of class and race. So hence it is intersectional in its approach. So, according to Tom Flax, the postmodern feminist theory is intended to identify the feminist perspective of the society, examine the way the social world affects the woman, analyze the role played by the power and knowledge relationship in shaping the woman's perception of the social world. So, and the devise the ways through which the social world can be changed. So Helen Chixes, Louis Irigaray, and Julia Kristeva are the most prominent postmodern feminists. Anyways, there are lots of other feminist writers, but these are the most prominent writers. So Helen Chixes is a novelist and inspired by the idea of Derrida's difference. She argued that male writing are grounded in their genital and libidinal economy. She urges women to write about themselves outside the world that man has constructed for them. Sixes believe that only women writing can change the perception of Western world among about women. So Julia Kristeva, who is another prominent writer of this very movement, inspired by psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan, who argued that woman is not natural rather than socially constructed. The belief that one is a woman is almost as absurd as the belief that one is a man. I say almost because there are still many goals that women can achieve: freedom of abortion and contraceptions, daycare centers for children, equality on the jobs, etc. Therefore, we must use "we are women" as an advertisement or a slogan of our demand. On a deeper level, however, a man cannot be, it is something which does not even belong in order of being. So now, coming on to the introduction to the author, to my current work, Alice Walker. She was born in 9 February 1944. She's a she's a writer and activist, perhaps best known for the author of The Color Purple and more than 20 other books and poetry collection she has written. She is known for recovering the works of Zora Neale Hurston and for her work against female circumcision. She won the Pulitzer Prize in 1984 and the National Book Award in 1984. So, it's a brief introduction about her activism and the current work. Walker's works are known for their portrayal of Black women's life. She depicts vividly the sexism, racism, and the poverty that often make life a struggle. Many of her novels depict women in other periods of history than our own. With non-fiction also, her portrayal give a sense of difference and similarity of the woman's conditions today and in that other time. So now a brief introduction about the summary of this work, which I have taken for the today's presentation, Possessing the Secret of Joy. In this novel, there are main seven characters with a Tashi as the main protagonist who belongs to the Olinkan community. Tashi was raised in Olinka and her sister Jura died after the ceremonial genital cutting ritual. This was the ritual practices done in that time in the very Olinkan community, and which you will come to know about later in the presentation. Tashi befriends two African American missionary childs, Olivia and Adam. Tashi, in the name of Lincoln pride, infibulates herself against the protest of her Christian mother. So, in the as the plot moves on, Tashi marries Adam, who is a missionary child, and breaking the tribal taboos and move to the America. So, living in biculturally in the America, Tashi cannot rationalize the emotions and anguish that she experienced daily in the name of her Olinkan tribal pride. After the infibulation, the leader who promotes female genital mutilation is respected by the community. He is sometimes compared with the great African leader Nelson Mandela. She meets various psychiatrists because of this infibulation. She has faced many kinds of problems. So she meets various psychiatrists to balance her emotional imbalance and tries to maintain her social sphere. So in the end, she returns to Africa and kill Lisa, who infibulates her, and she gets executed for this crime. And her friends holds the banner "Resistance is the secret of life." So now coming on to the discussion part of this presentation, entangling culture, medicine, and postmodern feminism. So culture is defined as the whole way of life of a particular society. The way of practicing infabulation and circumcision played a very vital role in establishing the culture of Olinkan pride, Olinkan people. This culture of infibulation was imposed on females, which was iterated by their community leader, who is in fact a male. So the leader, whom Olinkans considered them as a Nelson Mandela and even Jesus Christ, put them in extreme agony and pain only in the name of Olinkan pride. Females were oppressed by the male dominance. They were manipulated to do so. Many deaths happened because of these infibulation practices. If we analyze this practice of infibulation from the lens of postmodernism, then we may argue that it is not the part of meta narrative or a grand narrative, but it is the representation of layered mini narratives. Alice Walker takes the very neglected subject and bring it to the limelight. In this novel, she brings the reality of the lives of black women, especially of Lincoln females, into the domain of postmodern feminism. This novel revolved around the postmodernist feminist discourse in its implication. Walker throw light on the evil practices of genital mutilation and convincingly shows women as the victim of male patriarchy. This practice of female genital mutilation, infibulation, and circumcision come under the medical terminology. These practices may lead to severe physical consequences such as hemorrhage, infection, chronic pain, dysuria, pelvic inflammatory diseases, kilodic scarring, sexual dysfunction, infertility, and birth complications. And the protagonist of this novel has faced many such kind of problems after the infibulation. Modern medicine strongly condemns these type of practices, which have many bad repercussions on the health. The psychological trauma is also associated with this practice from which Tashi is suffering. So here is another concern of biomedical ethics in this novel. Biomedical ethics, which plays a very important role in medicine, act as a surveillance for the unethical and immoral practices in the realm of medicine. Tashi faced the ritual clash in the name of Olinkan pride, which depicts the unethical practice of playing with female sexuality. If we look from the standpoint of modern feminism, Alice Walker follows the instructions of Helen Success, who encouraged women to write about their stories from their bodies. By killing M. Lisa, who
Shohib,
infibulates her.
sorry to interrupt. You need to end your presentation in next 2 minutes.
Yeah, ma'am, it's. By killing M. Lisa, who infibulates her, Tashi liberates the rest of the women from such atrocities by developing a feminine philosophy in which she advocates to stop seeing women from the reflection of man imagination. So, in the end, with the death of Tashi, Alice Walker acceded to the argument of Julia Kristeva that woman is not natural but socially constructed. So, the social construct of the body ends with the submission of women. Male patriarchy overshadows the female identity. This shows a triumph of male dominance over female naturality. Foucault's extreme influential analysis of the working of powers in the modern society also focus on the body. Rather than treating power as an abstract force, he examines how forms of power are localized, inscribed on, and inflicted on the female bodies. Female bodies are controlled, regulated, and disciplined within the patriarchal structure of medicine. Sex is naturally constructed, but here natural construction is thwarted and contaminated to the practice of infibulation without the consent of women. So now coming on to the conclusion part, Alice Walker was consciously while writing Possessing the Secret of Joy, she was well versed with the postmodern condition as well as the post-colonial imperialism. The novel encapsulates the violation of biomedical practices, reflecting male dominance to the leader of Olinkan tribe. Psychological trauma because of the female genital mutilation is an unavoiding facet of this novel. The work also becomes an inextricable part of the medical humanities through depicting the dehumanizing practice of infibulation. This is my references and thank you.
Thank you so much, Shohib. Now the floor is open to discussion. Nilanjan sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation, Shohib. I just have an observation over there. I think you were dealing with a black woman author, Alice Walker, and the theoretical parameters that you were taking were basically the white feminists, Julia Kristeva and the others and the Europeans. So I think what you need to look at, I don't know, maybe you're writing a paper or maybe you're doing a thesis. So when you're doing that, please, point to the fissures that the black feminists are pointing towards the white feminists because of the issue of race. And Alice Walker's and the African feminists, they would always critique the white feminists for not encompassing and including the crisis of the black women within their discourse. So I think that is one area which seemed a bit problematic in your paper. So you have to address that issue quite prominently. Otherwise, it was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nilanjan sir. Now we have Prasenjit Singha. He's a student at Department of English, Sonapur College. So over to you, Prasenjit Singha.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Prasenjit Singha from Sonapur College, and the topic of my paper is Postmodernism in the novel of Sudha Murty's Mahasweta. Postmodern feminism as a concept is used to describe the reactions against the contradictions and absences in feminism, and it is postmodern feminism is an ultimate acceptor of diversity. If we look back to the first wave of feminism and second wave, like Virginia Woolf and Ellen Showalter, then we see that they talked about women as a whole. And yesterday, one of participants of the conference, Safana Rashid, she mentioned about individual women versus universality of women. This is the particular difference between these two waves, the first two waves and the third wave. They don't universalize women as a whole. They don't talk about women's suffering as a whole. They try to focus on the individual focuses, because the subjugation of women can be universal in a patriarchal society, not in every society. In a patriarchal society or phallocentric society, the subjugation of women can be universal, but the method that is used for subjugation can be different, and that is what is focused on in postmodern feminism. Coming to the text that I have taken, Mahasweta. The writer of Mahasweta is Sudha Murty, a very well-known figure of India, and she is a prolific writer of English and Kannada. And Sudha Murty was the recipient of R.K. Narayan Award for Literature and the Padma Shri in 2006. This is the book I am talking about, Mahasweta by Sudha Murty. So, in the book, basically the story, the protagonist, her name is Anupama, and the story revolves around her life, the struggles that she has to face as a woman, as a daughter, as a wife. These are the three stages of in a patriarchal society. A woman don't have their own identity. It's always like someone's daughter, someone's wife, or then someone's mother. If we go back to Mahasweta Devi's Amar Jivan, the book that was the first Bengali autobiography, if you remember, and in that text, Mahasweta Devi, she mentioned that her identity was not there. Identity crisis. She focused on that. She lost it. She was treated before her marriage. She was treated in relation to her father, and after marriage, she was treated according to the relation she had with her husband. And then she was treated as the mother of many children, many children. So not one or two, them that was more than 10 children. And in this novel, Mahasweta, Anupama is a girl whose mother died very early when she was young, and her father married again, and the stepmother did not like Anupama at all. And when she was in college and she was arranging for a play called Mahasweta, and she met a doctor called Anand, and named Anand, and the doctor, his family was a kind of a rich family, aristocratic family, and Anupama's family, she was a daughter of a school teacher. So there is this class difference is there. And yesterday, Safana Rashid also mentioned about inequalities between women based on class, caste, and religion, etc. So class is there. So again, when she met Anand wanted to marry her, and he tried to talk it out with his mother, and then his mother, after a lot of doing research, and then a lot of thinkings that same community, all right, but the class is different, but then she is very beautiful and she can be the pride of my house, and she wants a Lakshmi in the house, and she wants a daughter-in-law fast because she wants to do the Lakshmi Puja. And for these reasons, she agreed to the marriage. And after marrying, she got a leukoderma, that's a problem, skin problem, and leukoderma problem. And then she was sent home, thinking that this disease is this disease can't be contained and it can spread from one to another. So fearing this contamination, they just sent her home. And in a patriarchal society, this is a very severe uh, punishment to be given to a lady, because in a patriarchal society, you after getting married, a woman's ultimate sanctuary is her husband's house. This is the primary concept in a patriarchal society, marriage institutions. And then while she was there in her in-laws house, she actually found out that her sister-in-law named Girija had some affair with a guy who was also from a lower class. Community was same, but the class was different. So she could not meet with that guy openly. But then there is these two ladies in the novel. One is Girija and one is Anupama. Anupama has done nothing wrong. She is a victim of a disease which she has no control of. She can't control if I want to get leukoderma or not, if I want to get ill or not. She just got sick. That's not her fault or anything, but she was treated as a culprit. And then the mother of Anand, she just blamed her for everything that was happening, and she sent her home. But Girija, on the other hand, she had an affair. When her mother found out this thing, what she did, she sent the boy away to another place, and she searched for a guy and just married her off. Girija was married, and she was held in high esteem in the society and at home. But Anupama, on the other hand, who had done nothing wrong, she was sent home. This is the postmodern feminism. There are these both of them are women, but the difference is there. The class difference is there. In one of my classes in the college, Dr. Nizora Hazarika ma'am, she mentioned that these moralities, there are two kind of societies nowadays. One society which emphasizes on morality, and one society which emphasizes on material things like status. If somebody comes to know that my daughter-in-law has got leukoderma, then my status will get low, so I will send her home. This is the case here. And there is a line in the novel, I would like to read it out. Like Rohini to Chandra, like Lakshmi to Narayan, am I to him just as the creeper depends on a tree. I depend on him. I cannot live without him, and for his sake, I am ready to renounce everything. Let society say anything it wishes. I do not care. If this particular line can have two different point of views. One can be that the love of Anupama is so unconditional, so much pure, that she said these lines. And these are the lines she actually she was remembering it from the play called Mahasweta. She was playing on the stage, and during which she met Anand. And then she was remembering this line. If we take another point of view, we can see that this is an archetype. This is an archetype for a lady to follow up. This is an archetype used in a patriarchal society or a phallocentric society for the ladies to follow up. If you want to become an ideal woman, be a devotee of your husband. This is the clear-cut sentences here. And ironically, there is a line that, let society say anything it wishes, I do not care. If you do something that is wanted, society will never say anything. If the society wants you to be a slave, if you are being a slave, society will never tell you anything. But if you try to be unconventional, and if you try to establish yourself, your own identity as a woman, they will surely say something. And this I do not care line will become a very strong sentence if it is said after that unconventional thing is done. And In an interview with Shashi Tharoor and the writer of the novel, Sudha Murty.
Prasenjit, you have next 2 minutes to wind up your session.
All right, ma'am. So in that interview, she asked, like she was answering some questions, and she said it by herself that our her readers. She said, and I quote, "Are they buying the books because I am Narayan Murthy's wife?" She asked this question to herself and to Shashi Tharoor, and then she said, "No, she's my readers are not buying it for them. I am not dependent." The dependency complex she felt in her own life, and then she represented it in her novel. This is a this is a kind of an realistic thing, which because of which the society actually feels connected and relevant and can relate themselves to this novel. And postmodern feminism, as Shohib Bashir sir said, equality of women within the category of women. And another quote I would like to say by Simone de Beauvoir: "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." A woman is not now a gender, just a gender. No, woman has become a category of people who are moduled by men to think in a way that is actually set up by men only. Like, you need to think of yourself like this, and I am the man. I am setting the archetypes for you, and you think like that only to become an ideal woman. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Prasenjit. I really liked your idea. Like, you talked about double marginalization. So
Yes.
women, they suffer at two levels. Like, they
Yes.
can be more than two as well. So one is, in one case you talked about the
Gender
disease, the gender and the disease, and the other case you talked about the class difference and the patriarchal society again. So very rightly said, like in postmodern world, like this is not only patriarchal society we are dealing with. We are dealing at multiple issues and we are suffering at multiple levels.
Yes.
I really like the idea and wanted to share. And if anybody has any questions, presenters, you can post the questions as well. And of course, over to you, Nilanjan, sir.
Yeah, Prasenjit, what do you do? Do you teach in a college?
No, sir. I'm a student in the
Student.
college.
Oh, you're a student in the college.
Undergraduate
Okay.
student, 5th semester.
Oh, you're undergraduate. Okay, fine. I understand that. So you see, the thing that you need to look at is that you have to be a bit more. Let's say you've got to be a bit more careful when you are going through the genealogy of feminism. So you were talking about postmodern feminism, and in the same breath you were talking about Simone de Beauvoir. But unfortunately, Simone de Beauvoir is not a postmodernist. She's
I know,
very,
sir. I was
she's
just
very
using
modern.
it as a concept.
Yes.
Not, I was not
So-
caring for the timelines.
Yeah, so you have to sort of come into Judith Butler, and that's where the post-structural feminism actually starts from. But however, I have a question to you. The
Yes.
question to you is this: that you are basically dealing with a text which is written by an Indian woman,
Yes.
right? And the theoretical parameters and paradigms that you are using were basically Western feminists. So, do you face any problem while analyzing an Indian text in the light of Western theoretical parameters?
Sir, as a student of English literature, we are basically taught things that are written in England only. 18th century, 16th century, take it Puritan age, take it Elizabethan age, take it Romantic, take it Victorian, take it any age. Most of the books that we read are of that country only. And yes, Indian texts are there. And as a citizen of northeastern state, it is not much difficult because our minds in the northeastern state, the patriarchal society has not that much of grip as it has in other parts of India, because in northeastern state, most of the people, most of the citizens belong to the tribal community. And if I take you there, then there is a point of view that the mainstream Indian societies and the tribal community, they stand apart. The freedom that the lady of a tribal community gets is different from the freedom that a women get in a mainstream society. So as a citizen of northeastern state, I have not that I don't have that grip in my mind of that patriarchal society. So it is very easy to break it through. This is very normal thing here, and you must have heard of Shillong, where women are selling and men are at home, and then there is this women's naked protest in Manipur. Women are very way forward people here. And so and most of the teachers from whom I have learned a lot of things, most of them were women. So it is not a difficult thing to accept Western things are more kind of a rationality is more of a presence of rationality is there. Indian text, most of the Indian texts, they are trying to evolve. And one of my teachers just compared that 16th century condition of England is now the condition of India, because the state of women there in the 16th century is now here in India. So I do not personally feel much kind of a difficulty to interpret the text in a Western point of view, but it's interesting to see things. It is interesting to read the Indian text more than reading the Western things, because it is more relevant. And then it's more interesting to interpret something that is relevant to me, but the idea is from other country, and I'm bringing it here to apply it on a text that is relevant to me. And it kind of gets very much interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that response. So you could have also looked at Spiva, but there was this wonderful line by in one of the novels of E.M. Foster, "Just connect." So I think that is our job, to connect. Yes, Shivangi, we can move forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nilanjan sir. Thank you so much, Prasenjit. And now we have Jyoti Priyadarshini. She's a PhD scholar at IIT Bhubaneswar. So over to you, Jyoti ma'am.
Excuse me, Shivangi. It's from Triple IT Bhubaneswar.
Yeah, I'm
Not
so
IIT.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Triple IT
Yeah.
Bhubaneswar. I'm so sorry for that
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah. It's fine. Okay, just give me a minute. I will share the screen.
Yeah, sure.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible, Jyoti.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone present over here.
Can
So
you zoom
today's
it? Jyoti, can you zoom it a bit?
okay now.
Yeah, it's fine. A bit better.
Okay, let me rotate the phone. Just a minute. Is it visible now?
Yeah, now it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone present over here. So in today's presentation, I'll be talking about problematizing truth in Anish Jung's Outside the Frame. This is first chapter from the book Unveiling India. Okay. Here, my presentation flow goes like this, like introduction. Then I will be talking about memory in brief. Then I'll move on to mobility. Then I'll talk about memory in Anish Jung's Unveiling India, particularly the first chapter, and I'll stick to mobility in that chapter also. That's all. So the thing is, this Unveiling India by Anish Jung, it's a kind of life writing where she is writing stories of women. She's writing stories of women who are telling of marriage, widowhood, unfair work practices, sexual servitude. So basically, it's a feminist text. But the thing is, it's a life writing. It's a form of life writing. She's narrating this particular book by using the first person narrative, I. And at the same time, she is weaving her own story, her own life experiences with other women she is talking about in different chapters. So when I say life writing as a genre, it's postmodern in nature, as it has emerged at least since the 1970s from late postmodern conception of the self. Life narratives are widely considered by critics as testimonies with an implication to be understood as representative life stories. So basically, they are representing their lives and lives of other women or anybody. The genre's perceived emphasis on authenticity compels the critics to apply the term testimony to describe life narratives, which inadvertently leads to normativization of the available truth about their lived experience. So when I say problematizing truth, it itself questions the authenticity. The narrator is narrating her own experiences, and that subjective truth is not subjective to us. It might be objective one. So it questions the authenticity of the text. The theoreticians and historians of life writing commonly fuse or mold subgenres, as in the neologisms auto or biography, biofiction, biographiction, auto narration, and autobiographiction. So this is how there is a two kinds of genres are mixing, or different genres are, there is a borderline, or there is no border, even we can say. Sometimes some genres are merging together. Now I will come to mobility. When it comes to mobility examines the process as defined by Scheller in Mobility Justice, in the book Mobility Justice that was published in the year 2014. There, Scheller is talking about mobility examines the process, structure, and consequences of the movement of people, resources, commodities, and ideas. It involves research on the combined movements of people, objects, and information in all of the complex relational dynamics. So, mobility as a concept is this very idea of mobility centers around mobile bodies, how they are moving, embodied, and along with their mobility, there is embodied experience and the knowledge that this movement is always affected by an external stimuli like tourism, communication, education, job hunting. So, these are the external stimuli which affects the mobility of the concerned person or the mobile bodies. The embodiment of mobility as a subjective experience practice is central to the narrative of the text. So here I am talking about mobility as an analytical tool to analyze the narrative of Anish Jung's this text. According to John Array, in the book 2000, in the book Mobilities, published in the year 2007, talks about bodies navigate backwards and forwards between directly sensing the external world as they move bodily in and through it, and discursively mediated sensescapes that signify social taste and distinction, ideology and meaning. The body, especially senses, as it moves, is endowed with kinesthetics, the sixth sense that informs one what the body is doing in space through the sensations of movement registered in its joints, muscles, tendons, so on. But here I won't be talking about exactly how these sensations of movements registered by Anish Young. Rather, I will talk about her sensescapes, how she is uh, traveling from India, from the city of Hyderabad to New York, and what kind of changes she is experiencing, her those embodied experiences with her mobility, with her migration from Hyderabad to New York. Memory. When I talk about memory, when it comes to defining memory, memory then is historically conditioned. It is not simply handed down in a timeless form from generation to generation, but bears the impression or impress or stamp of its own time and culture. This is how Anne Whitehead defines memory in the book Memory, the New Critical Idiom. Memory is a traveling concept, as the concept can travel between disciplines, historical periods, between geographically dispersed communities, as an analytical tool in exploring the distinction between forms of life writing. As this particular text that I have chosen, this textual material that I am engaged with, centers on autobiography, is a life writing which provides the most incidental information about everyday mobility practices. So definitely it's a kind of analytical tool I'm using memory to further investigate the foundational significance of mobility and memory through the text. And the study of this self-writing itself offers to delve deep into mobility, immobility, and memory of the narrator, and works as an
Jyoti, you are not audible and your screen is not visible.
now am I audible?
Yeah, but your screen is not visible.
Is it okay? Okay, let me see. Now is it visible?
No, it is not. Nilanjan sir, can you see it? Like, is the issue at my end?
No, we can't see
Yeah,
your
Jyoti, we
screen.
cannot see your screen.
Okay, I'm extremely sorry. Just give me a few seconds. I'll look into the matter.
Yeah.
Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for the
No
problem.
worries, no worries,
Yeah.
Jyoti.
Okay. So I was speaking about mobility. Then I came down to memory. I think. Yeah. I
Yeah.
have talked about memory. So here I'll be talking about mobility, immobility, and memory as an analytical tool for exploring the different forms of self-writing. Uh, but this time in this paper, I'll be taking up this particular writing of Anish Jung, Unveiling India. And there is a limited time, so I'll be talking about only the first chapter, very first chapter outside the frame, where the narrator herself, Anish Jung, in the very first line is saying, I was 3 years old. I'm quoting from the book or from the chapter outside the frame, Unveiling India. The very first sentence goes like this: I was 3 years old when I was first photographed. She's speaking from her memory. It's a kind of textual quality which incorporates which incorporates deconstruction and reconstruction together. And it was garden party for children, or at least that's what I assume it was. So this is what the perception of the children, or when she's recollecting her childhood, this is what her perception at that point of time, being a 3-year-old girl. When she moves on to another photograph, in the next photograph, I am older, already solemn at the age of 9 or 10, looking at the world with wider eyes. This speaks about her memory, how she is traveling through the childhood memory. She is speaking about one photograph, another photograph at the age of 9 or 10, taken at the age of 9 or 10. And how that particular girl, or when she is speaking about her own childhood, how she was looking at the world with wider eyes, with a different perception. This is how she is moving. Again, when it comes to the photographs of her childhood days, she is speaking about her mother. She is saying that, I quote, my mother remains absent in only family portrait that resets on the last page of the album. So at that point of time, she is seeing a change. Like her mother was not there in the photographs, but
Jyoti, sorry to
now,
interrupt. You have two more minutes to wind up your presentation.
okay, fine. Yeah, yeah, thank you. So when it comes to memory, we can see how she is thinking about her childhood days and reflecting on those and building up her narrative. But when she has moved to New York, she had a different notion. She had altogether, there is a mobility in geographical mobility, there is a cultural mobility. She is getting an exposure to Western culture and all. Now, when she comes back or returns back to our own country, India, and she is she's in trying to come in contact with few more people, women like Gomti. She is experiencing in the land of Rajasthan what kind of culture, or where how women are experiencing their life and their tradition, their culture, how it is quite different. So we can see there is a cultural mobility, there is a geographical mobility within the nation itself and outside the nation itself. This is how she is building up her narrative by using first person narrative. And she is weaving her own story along with the women's of India and making it a journey of women and speaking out her own. She is like a window. She is like a distant window. Anish Jung is here like a distant window to Gomti and her mother and many other women she is speaking about in this book. Thank you all. Due to lack of time, I won't be able to share all of the slides.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
how I am ending it up. I'm
Okay, thank you
extremely
so much.
sorry.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jyoti. Over to you, Nilanjan sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jyoti Priyadarshini, for that wonderful presentation. My question to you would be that, so basically, I think, if I'm not wrong, you were basically dealing with the memory studies as a broad theoretical framework in the paper that you were presenting. So how do you situate that within postmodernism? Because memory is unifying, whereas postmodernism is about dispersion. How do you collate the two together?
The thing is that I'm most often mostly I'm concerned with life writing. Here, this memory and mobility are some aspects, or these are two analytical tools. I'm analyzing the narrative structure of Anish Jung's this writing, Unveiling India. So these are my theoretical lens to look at this particular narrative. So when I say about life writing or this self writing, this genre itself is postmodern in nature. So I'm trying to look at this particular text through these lenses.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. In fact, I would like to engage with you further intellectually because I'm really interested by your paper. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Jyoti.
Thank you.
And yes, Shivangi, we can please move forward there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nilanjan sir, and congratulations, Jyoti. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Shiva.
moving forward, we have Swagath Senan. He's an MPhil scholar at JNU New Delhi. So,
Am I audible?
yeah, you are.
Okay. So let me start.
Yeah, sure.
So good afternoon, everyone. So I will starting with my title right away. So the title is Anthropocene as Granularity of the Postmodern World, a reading of Jean-François Lyotard's The Postmodern Condition. So many of you may be already familiar with the concepts of Lyotard and how he developed the basic concrete ideas of postmodernism as a philosophy, as a sociological subject. So I'm just giving a brief idea of what who Lyotard is and his philosophy. So Lyotard was a French philosopher, sociologist, and a literary theorist. And today, why I am interested in his philosophy or his this particular book, The Postmodern Condition, is because, in a sense, the postmodern condition, this particular work, built the ground for what we see the postmodernism as a philosophy today. Because before that, interestingly, postmodernism was a term that was used as something to refer to the art critics or so on. So he actually built the base for postmodernism as a philosophy, as a sociological concept. So like I'm not really looking at every aspect of the postmodernism as he defined. We don't have time, so I'm just focusing on a major point that he introduced in his work, that is grand narrative. So grand narrative is on a major point that where he defined postmodernism. So so since you might be hearing a lot about postmodernism these days, I'm just focusing on these details. So one important fact is that um, just a minute. Yeah, the modernity, the postmodernity, where it distinct. Postmodernity is basically a rejection of modernity, right? Postmodernity, as we know, is a rejection of what modernity represents. So one thing that modernity represented was this idea of grand narrative. That's what Lyotard is telling. So grand narrative. If we look more into grand narrative, what is a grand narrative? So it is basically, in the words of Lyotard, is a untrustworthiness towards a meta narrative in the postmodern world. So what is this untrustworthiness towards the meta narratives? So basically, if I give the examples of grand narratives, it ranges from religion to democracy to Marxism, or whatever grand narrative that has this authoritarian characteristics, and it claims the universal truth stance, because it claims as a universal truth, and it shadows over every details in the discourse. So this is basically what a grand narrative is. So he says that such a grand narrative does not actually exist in a postmodern condition, and the what he names as micro narratives, which will replace the grand narratives in the postmodern condition. So one particular reason he says that says because of the emergence of scientific curiosity and so on, because granarities are basically it is not fundamentally proven in a logical manner or proven scientifically. It can be a narrative that gets the popular legitimation. So say in the case of religion claims the universal truth, like everything comes within the spectrum of religion, but it is not actually something that defined by the scientific definitions. So this is what he says, that this kind of a narrative won't be won't exist in a postmodern world or postmodern condition, in at least in the intelligentsia. So here is the most important part. I saw that interesting, that the concept of Anthropocene. So how this concept of Anthropocene is can be correlated with the idea of grand narrative in a postmodern condition. So as I told before, that I'm just written here the same thing. Modernity is the modernity is the postmodernity differs from modernity is its attitude of skepticism towards what it considers grand narratives or ideologies of modernism. So in quoting Lyotard's words, he says that, simplifying to the extreme, I define postmodern as incredulity towards meta-narrative. So incredulity is the unwillingness to believe something. So this is the sense of what grand narrative is. So moving forward, one more thing I need to say, that the trustworthiness doesn't mean that grand narratives are completely false, or it's not like something like a post truth phenomenon. It is just that it doesn't have the complete validity on the basis of science. So Anthropocene is basically, it's a term that you are hearing a lot in these days. So I'm not going to define much of Anthropocene. So Anthropocene was a geological epoch. It was proposed as a geological epoch, but it got invalidated on the basis of science by the group of geologists, because they couldn't find any evidence from the rock formations or the glaciers. So it is a pure scientific term, but it was scientifically not proven. But still, the discourse is very relevant in today's postmodern world. So I believe that this shows the importance of a zoe-centric emergence of a zoe-centric narrative in the postmodern condition. That's why such a term, or such a concept of Anthropocene is still relevant. So the major reason behind this was the emergence of a zoe-centric narrative, or zoe-centrism means simply life-centrism. So this was a term introduced by Dibesh Chakraborty in his famous lecture. So before this, the anthropocentric narratives or human-centric narratives and the non-human-centric narratives, all the narratives of ecologists, were like in the two extreme ends of the discourse. But and they were never interested in a interdisciplinary approach of study. But recently, at least in the 2 decades of this, what we are experiencing in the postmodern world, what we have seen is the in a such interdisciplinary approach or multidisciplinary methods to study all these areas, what we see as eco-racism, eco-casteism, eco-feminism. We are actually in this junction of meeting point of seeing all these theoretical, like non-anthropocentric, to read the social and political construct in a non-anthropocentric framework. So I'm telling this kind of a this is a real this actually this is the after effect of, or the result of this emergence of a zoe-centric narrative, that nowadays the larger framework of even the reading of social constructs are changing towards a non-anthropocentric framework. So this shows that uh, the uh, this shows that the concept of Anthropocene is a symbol for this. It's a evidence of such a emergence. So this is in a sense actually I'm not contradicting with the concept of Lyotard, but Lyotard was telling that a grand narrative won't exist in the postmodern condition, but the Anthropocene itself is actually a grand narrative, right? So because Anthropocene is something that is scientifically invalidated on the basis of science, but it is existing, and it is considered as a universal authoritarian universal truth, and that's why the it is emerging everywhere. So a grand narrative that he told that the grand narratives of modernity won't exist, or it will diminish in the postmodern world, but a new grand narrative itself is emerging in the postmodern world. So this is an interesting point. Maybe the reason I feel that because the very framework that Lyotard was working in his time, because he was writing this work, or he was working on this work in a point where postmodernism was only in a stage that was, they were defining it. So he belonged to this Foucault, that kind of a school. So at that time he was working within the like anthropocentric framework. He was developing this concept from an anthropocentric framework. So he was not seeing it from a larger non-anthropocentric framework. Maybe that's the reason that still, like I agree with all the points of Lyotard, and not at all contradicting with his concept. But
Swagath, sorry to interrupt. You have 2 more minutes to wind up.
okay, I will come to the conclusion. So the point is not just that Anthropocene is a grand narrative, or Anthropocene is a contradictory point where a grand narrative can exist in a postmodern condition. But more than that, like a moral of the story, I say that this shows how a zoocentric or non-anthropocentric framework is so relevant in the current times, and how it can even change the way we see or way we approach the theoretical discourses of our times, even the social construct or the pure anthropocentric ideas that, as we see, like in the case of ecofeminism or eco-racism, while we see the even the third world narrative or Orientalism everywhere, we can see these narratives from a new point of view, from a point where the destruction of the earth, or like the human re-engineered earth, the discourse of human re-engineered earth, along with who re-engineered the earth, not human as a species, maybe it is as a the west and east discourse, or the poor and rich discourse. So these every discourse of the human constructs or social constructs can be correlated with the non-anthropocentric framework, unlike in the modernist world, where the theoreticians were not at all interested in correlating these discourses. So that, I think, that's the argument that I am putting here. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swagath. A nice vantage point from looking at looking from an anthropocentric perspective. That was a nice lens to look at this post
Thank you.
modernism. Thank you so much. Now over to Nilanjan, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Swagath, for such a wonderful presentation. I really liked when you were, pointing out the fissures in the arguments of Lyotard. That is such an important part of any intellectual exercise, to question. So, I was just wondering, because this is one area which I have not really worked upon as such, so I would like to learn from you. So, Dipesh Chakraborty, I believe he was saying that, the anthropocentric historians are kind of, facing a dilemma. The dilemma is that, whether they should still go on with the distinction between natural history and human history, or whether they should collate that together. So how do you look at anthropocentrism from the perspective of, say, the human subjectivity? Are we losing on human subjectivity, or are we gaining on that through anthropocentrism?
So that's a very interesting and a tricky question, first of all. But I believe that even actually the human subjectivity is, in a sense, it is developing only, because this sudden change in the postmodern world, like, we should be concerned about the earth, and the non-anthropocentric discourse should be there. It itself is a anthropocentric selfishness, right? because all this time we were not concerned about the engaging in such a framework. But suddenly what's happening in postmodern world, maybe that's the developing of anthropocentrism itself, because we found that the considering ourselves as a species only is the solution to exist in this world. Maybe it's like a gimmick, it's like a it's not a actual and non-anthropocentrism that is happening.
That's right. Are you from the Department of English, Swagath, or are you from
Yeah,
any other department? So
I'm
who's
actually from Department of English only, sir.
okay? And who's your supervisor?
Saugata Badri.
Oh, Shohib is such an
Yeah.
old friend of mine.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, regularly in touch. So thank you, Swagath. So I think we will be in touch with each other because we have a common guru, as it were, in Shohib. So say
Yeah,
hello to
he's a
him.
nice bro,
Say
sir.
hello to him from my side. And thank you, Swagath, for that wonderful presentation.
Thank
So
you, sir.
Shivangi, please move forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nilanjan sir. Now we have Maria Sebi. She's a student at SB College, Changanassery, and her topic for presentation is Women in Augmented Reality, the era of social media influencers. Hi, Maria,
Hello,
over
am
to
I
you.
audible?
Yeah, you are.
Good afternoon to all. So today I'm going to present on the topic Women in Augmented Reality, the era of social media influencers. So let me begin by telling about the influences of social media in our life during these times. Social media has become an integral part of human life, and we know that no day passes without the media intervening in our life. And human beings have learned to lose control over
Maria,
their own
your voice
thoughts
is
because.
breaking.
Ma'am, is it okay now?
Yeah, it's fine now.
So, human beings tend to lose control over their own thoughts, which is really disturbing because we are influenced by many things that are happening around us. In fact, we are in a position where almost all signals try to affect us, and it disturbs our mood, it disturbs our thought, and the influence goes on in myriad ways, and it is, in fact, it is possible to notice in a change in our attitude too. So, I would like to tell how. Social media is connected to postmodernism. We know that Baudrillard has talked about postmodernism, and he says that when you consider postmodernism, we know that the terms like truth, objectivity, singularity, and all those kind of unitary terms are challenged. And you know we also see that it does not believe in fixities as and the idea that truth is not definable or singular. And when it comes to social media, we know that every person has got a liberty to discuss and talk about things, and even his or her own personal things to the society. And it has also eradicated the culture of the notion of high culture and low culture, or the variations between who is intellectual and who is stupid, because you are becoming a producer and consumer at the same time. You can tell your things, you can ask for you can present yourself as a person to others, and you can get ideas from them too. So coming to Baudrillard, he in his work in his essay in Simulacra and Simulations, he says that human beings are now unable to see the world as it really is. And we have come to a state where reality and illusion is, it is not easy to distinguish between the two. And this is what happens in the case of social media too. And since the lockdown has happened, we tend to be in a point in the history where we face a complicated identity crisis, because social media in a way ties us to a hyper real world. And considering the influence of the social media influencers, they promote a personal brand, and which blurs which try to blurs a line between public persona and an authentic self, because you know uh, the profile seems to be just a representation where the individual no longer exists. And this kind of representation where this is a simulacrum where the reality is replaced by representation only. So this is way social media and postmodernism is connected. Now let me talk about the presence of women and how women are influenced by all these changes that are happening in the postmodern world. I am using the text of Naomi Wolf, The Beauty Myth, to talk about this. And this is a text written in 1990. And I have felt that this concept has come back to this this era also, because we live in a world where representation is more. And in the text, Naomi Wolf says that beauty was used against women for a long period of time. And she says that the standard of beauty and feminine traits assigned to women are devaluing. And in the era of social media influencers, this is exactly what is happening, because you are asking the woman to confine to some special attributes or confined to the beauty standards, and this is in a way devaluing their merit. Uh, and during the 1990s, Wolf is talking about a period where when there was a when the women were bombarded by brands, fashion, editorials, or photography, they were confined to the needs attributed by the society. But this is exactly what is happening today also, because the social media influencers to try to do the same. And also we see that the focus for the pursuit of pursued by the strong men seeking beautiful women, and the focus for the dreams of women, and the love for beauty is seen here too, because although women become financially successful and they are more their presence is more felt in the public space, they are affected by the lack of self-esteem due to this recurring current that is coming after years and years. This is repeating. And you know what I mean to see that the beauty myth is still relevant today. And it determines urgency and duty to bear the identity and value of women on their beauty. And as Naomi Wolf has pointed out, these notions put forth by the society dictated to women, that and it orders them, and like what they should look like, and what should they do to be appealing to the society. And this has always been a part of the patriarchal society to to subjugate the women who are stronger now materially. And this is a psychological way to weaken them by the standards of beauty. And as Wolf points out, there were professional beauty skills that developed during the period which questioned the women. They were fixed to standardities. And this is where the text of Toril Moy or Julia Kristeva plays an important role, because they have talked about anti-essentialism. I have felt that during with the emergence of the social media influencers, we are sticking more to the essentialist concept that women should be like this, women should be like that. But this is what should be critiqued, because those texts give us an example of how women should the anti-essentialist aspects, because you can't confine one to essential things, because we can't really say you should be like that or you should be like that. It's not just about identity, it is about many more things. And that is why we should Wolf has criticized terms like ladylike, because it was overemphasized and unnecessary. And coming to the present scenario, the same thing is happening now also, because with the advent of the beauty influencers and people who promote brands, we are in a position to confine to them, or we feel like we would be left behind, because this beauty myth is still prevalent and it's still existing today. And apart from all that, we see that during the Victorian era, the women were tied down to their homes and the household chores. When it came to the 1990s, when they become more independent, they were affected by the beauty myth, which which led to more competition, which led to things which tied them back. But now the same thing is happening, as we are facing in in a postmodern world, in a postmodern situation where we can't identify between reality and illusion, and when where individuals are not presenting themselves as a people they should be. The beauty myth still operates, and it tries to subjugate women, and it is absolutely it is questioning, or it is trying to promote the essentialist idea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. So you talked about Sir Nilanjan, sir. Can I take 1 minute?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Maria, can you please mute yourself?
yeah. Yeah, so Maria, you talked about this whole idea of essentialism being promoted by social media influencers. I do understand that this idea is promoted, and we do talk about fairness claims and all these stuff. Like, and now we have changed the name of that fairness claim as well. But I think the problem is not about how much propagation is there of essentialism. I think the root problem is still the patriarchy and still the mindset we carry. So if we need to get to done away with this essentialism, we need to get to the very root cause of the problem, and that is patriarchal society, and that is the ideology we have been that is fed into our system. So we talked about we talk about gender performity by Judith Butler. She talks about that and how women are supposed to sit in a certain way, present in a certain way. Why we actually talk about is the problem again lies with us, and that is the patriarchy, that is the ideological setup we have been born and brought up into. So unless and until we don't raise our future kids in a way we expect us to be, I think nothing will change. Nilanjan sir, what do you have to say on this? Like, this is what I genuinely feel like. Unless
Yes.
and until we don't get to the problem, these theories, these issues will, come up time and again.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Shivangi, and thank you, Maria, for that wonderful presentation. However, just a little observation in 30 odd seconds, that we need to really problematize these terms of values, beauty, what the women want, because you see, since Shivangi was talking about Judith Butler actually problematizes the very idea of who a woman is. And she has recently published an essay called Who is a Woman? And why is she saying that? Because Judith Butler is of the point of view that gender assignment at birth is very problematic. We who are born with a penis is called a man, and people who are born with a vagina is called a woman. That itself is problematic, because later on, a man born with a penis might identify himself as a woman or as gender neutral. A human being born with a vagina can actually identify herself as a man or gender neutral. So, therefore, gender assignment at birth is very problematic, and that is precisely the point at which Judith Butler is criticizing people like Simone de Beauvoir and Julia Kristeva, because she says that the second wave feminists have never questioned who a woman is. They have agreed with the patriarchal stereotype that a woman is basically a person born with a vagina. So you see, so my observation to that paper would be, say, so when you are criticizing the consumerist culture and say that, oh, but then we don't need the creams because the creams are, or the fairness creams and this and all, they're selling a certain stereotype of beauty. You can act. The other way of looking at that would be that you might actually need those. You may need those products for any human being as a mark of protest. So if a man wants to dress up as a woman by challenging the norms of patriarchy, he might actually need those products. So it's never that simple and unilinear. So these are the things that we may talk about. However, I would congratulate Mary for that wonderful paper, and I would request Shivangi to please move forward with the session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nilanjan sir. Now we have Ankita Chaudhary, and she's a PhD scholar, Department of English, IS University, Jaipur, and her topic for today is Beyond Postmodernism, British Root Boys, Transcending Marginalization Through Language in Gautam Malkani's Londastani.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Shivangi ma'am, for the introduction. I'm Ankita Chaudhary, and I'm a research scholar at IIS University, Jaipur. And the title of my paper is Beyond Postmodernism, British Root Boys Transcending Marginalization Through Language in Gautam Malkani's Rananstani. So the paper focuses on the identity formation of the group of second generation South Asian teenagers in Britain and them transcending marginalization through language and challenges the conventional representation of the marginalities constructed through language and identity in the host country. I seek to move beyond a focus on the widely discussed area of post colonial perspective and investigate the changing trend of how language is transcending from just a means of communication, since the language Malkani has used in this text is transcending from just a means of is not pure English. The Malkani, the language he has used is not pure English but a product of clashes, encounters, and cultural hybridization. So I would like to begin my paper with the quote by Martin Huarka that language is the house of being. Now, what does that mean? It means that language is not just a tool to communicate, but more than a tool, ready at hand for our use, and it is the reflection of who we are. And it means that we live in our language. And talking about language used in this text, then it is very innovative. It is kind of SMS talk, messages talk, and it's short forms of the words, which is quite common with the younger lot of readers who are on social networking websites today. So the main characters in London Sani are teenagers, and using such a language is an important symbolic representation of the intermixture of London streets and hip hop pronunciation, like using short forms and using not pronouncing G if it is a last letter in some word, like if it's loving. So they are not pronouncing it as loving, but loving. And like there are so many other words like this, and the use of slangs and profanities and curses in Hindi and Urdu and Punjabi. So this all reflect the contemporary society of London. So the use of such characteristic language in the text highlights the psychological disposition, psychological temperament. So the story of the text revolves around a group of South Asian boys, and they call themselves Desis. And the novel represents the world of rude boys to the readers, and Malkani does so through jazz. He is a teenager who is trying everything possible to fit into this gang of the Desis. Now, what is this Desi? Desi is the word, it's a group, privileges so much and uses to label themselves and others is essentially related to diaspora, as Malkani explains. I'm quoting here. Desi literally means countrymen and refers specifically to the diaspora. It is broader than terms such as Indian, Pakistani, Hindu, Sikh, or Muslim, and yet narrower than the term Asian or even South Asian. It acts as a self-determined alternative to the word Paki, and the enthusiasm with which it has been embraced suggests a conscious decision against appropriating the offensive word Paki and trying to turn it into a positive. So, in the entire novel, Jess tries his best to sound like an authenticate Desi. And what are the characteristics of a Desi? Rude, strong, masculine, and following the latest trends like beamers, wearing big chains. So these are all the characteristics of a rude boy, of a Desi. And to be a part of this group, Jazz hides his intelligent academic past, as it was a hurdle for him in becoming a rude boy, in becoming a Desi, and a tough, style conscious male. So the story the story of the novel begins with a fight where the male protagonist of the novel, Harjeet, beating a white boy because he called him Paki. And in written, Harjeet called him "you dirty Gora." So here, Harjeet is not just taking the abuse but giving it back. So I already have also have quoted that paragraph, but there are so many curses and harsh words, so that's why I'm deliberately leaving it out. So Hardik here is doing what? His tone is full of threat and full of warning. So at this time, the language Hardik is using is challenging and mixture of slangs, texting, Punjabi, and Hindi. So the first scene itself foreshadows the tone for the rest of the novel. In this respect, I would also like to quote by Oskave, quote, the language we use is very powerful and loaded with meaning. It is usually the only genetically endowed information storage system that humans have. This implies that all our experiences and memories are, to a large extent, encoded in a language system. Unquote. So this suggests that language and behavior are related, and the language we speak clearly reflects the way we think and the way we behave. So that is to say that our speech exposes our thoughts, feelings, behavior, attitude, perspective. So in the beginning, it is quite hard to read this novel because we are not really very much in the habit of reading short words in the novel. It's a message, it's a different thing, but when we are reading a novel, we are not in such a habit. So, but Malkani does so to keep the language part authentic. So, and in this respect, he also says in one of his interviews with Financial Times that I tried to create a timeless version of the slang so that more people could recognize and relate to it. So now when we read the novel, we think we take Jess as a South Asian, and we think that Jess is a short for Jaswinder or Jasmeet or any other name. And it just happens. We don't do it on a purpose, but it just happens. And throughout the novel, when we are reading the novel, throughout the novel, we think that he's a South Asian. But in the end of in fact, on the last page of the novel, Malkani reveals that he is a white actually. He is a native. So, and why he is doing that? The purpose is to show the development of British South Asian boys from wounded, suffered, and victimized individuals, the marginalized people, to aggressive groups of desis, who are the shares. Now, I will explain later in the paper that who are the shares are. So Malkani has tried to show the transformation of ethnic identities into subculture through youth who are present at the same level in the mainstream society and other subcultures. And subculture is a mixture of their native and mainstream and their own way of thinking. It is a hybrid of sorts, mushrooming into a culture, overt culture, which is neither British nor South Asian. It is a subculture. The relationship between language and behavior is expressed vividly, as are the characteristic features of the protagonists. So, with their reinforcing the the reinforcing of straight mechanism and the vocabulary indicate a reorientation in the identity formation for young British Asians, which is also reflected in the organization of the novel. Now, Malkani has divided this novel into three sections. The first part is named Paki, the second part is Sher, and the third part is Desi. So, what is Paki? It is a racial slur hinting at the submissive attitude of British Asian communities in the past. This section is followed by Sher, which means tiger. In this section, it is about the phase of aggression and violence between gangs. And while the third part, Desi, it is about the phase of awareness, powerful language for empowered young men. So, however, this group is not divided by ethnic lines in quite the segregated way. Rather, there is a vast mix of heritages making up the group, and through this mixing, the boys are attempting to create their own distinctively British and masculine identity. Therefore, though they are not undergoing a process of assimilation into the mainstream, they are also not seeking exclusion in terms of race, but rather in terms of youth culture. So the young characters in the text do not understand their identity as something which is multiple. Instead, believe in a single identity for themselves, which is based on universal values, means that this identity construction can be understood in the relation of beyond postmodernism experimentation with the idea of multiple selves.
Ankita, sorry to interrupt. You have 2 more minutes more to
Sure,
wind up.
I'm only concluding, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
no, no, please. So, as the novel claims that cultural identity cannot be rigidly imprisoned within pre-constituted frames of interpretation. Rather, the individuals now are enabling themselves by accepting their identity to recite whatever self they want to present. As none of the second generation South Asian characters is mimicking or following blindly the colonized past or present mindsets of their parents or the first generation migrants, they love their culture. They are aware of their roots, they value it, and they don't like the people. In fact, in the novel there are few incidents where they are cursing the people who are running away from their reality, who are not who are rejecting their past. So they are not struggling for their identity. They are not just sitting and watching, but having their own point of view. They are not struggling, but in the host, they are not struggling for their identity formation in the host country, because the idea that they are a part of the mainstream society comes naturally to them, and they are as British as any English white is. And the use of language is to show the authenticity of these teenagers. They love, respect, and aware of their culture and roots, and at the same time identify themselves with the mainstream society. They are not struggling for identity formation, in fact cursing those who are not accepting it. They are not afraid of accepting their ancestral roots, but not holding it tightly for the purpose of keeping their nativity alive, which is conventional method of keeping their nativity alive in the foreign land or host country. What they have received from their parents is staying with them, and where they have born and brought up, the foreign land is something exists within them. So in both the cases, they are receiving them and in a natural way, which gives birth to their subculture and reflected through their language, which is not marginalized in any way. So that was my paper. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ankita. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Over to Nilanjan, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Ankita ji. It was a wonderful presentation. And I remember our professor, Professor Krishna Sen from the University of Calcutta, she talks about this transformation in the diasporic novels. And she says that no longer are people talking about this nostalgia for the past and this struggling with the hyphenated identity, but they are, but they're talking about this comfort which the characters are, experiencing
Yes.
in the space in which they're existing.
Yes, yes.
So that was it. So I have a little question for you. So therefore, you were talking about the language and how they are using a different kind of a language. So is that language therefore becoming a signifier, a pointer towards their comfort, towards their identity?
Kind of, we can say that, because the language, as I said, that it is a subculture, so they are giving characteristics to the subculture. They are not receiving everything, but they are choosing actually, and then giving characteristic to the subculture, and language is one of them. So yes, it is a kind of defense mechanism, we can say, strengthening themselves, their existence and presence in the country which used to be a host country for their parents. So yes.
Thank you, Ankita. I mean, I'm really mesmerized by your intellectual depth, and it was a wonderful, wonderful paper.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
I've
Thank you.
I've actually learned a lot from you today. Thank
Oh,
you for that.
thank you so much. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
so Shivangiji, please move the session forward.
Yeah, congratulations, Ankita. Now we have last presenter for the day. She's Sangeeta, and she's an assistant professor of English at SDNB Vaishnav College for Women. Her topic for today is BoJack Horseman, Hyperreality, Hollywood, and the Horse.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I'll share my PPT.
Yeah.
Okay, is my PPT visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Miss Sangeeta. It is visible.
Yeah. So I would like to start. Yes, I would like to start with the concept note.
Now it's not visible. Also, can you please tilt your screen? The font size is little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, just a minute. Yeah. So as I was telling, I'm sorry for the delay. So yes, I would like to start my presentation with the concept note. So the concept note tries to highlight on the incredulity towards meta narrative. So we are moving somewhere that and postmodernism in general has a suspicion towards meta narratives. So and I think this is positive to a certain extent, because only when you have certain suspicions, certain doubts towards the meta narratives, you go on to the marginalized voices, you go on to the side narratives, you go on to the mini narratives. So if you're going to doubt the meta narrative of patriarchy, or if you're going to doubt the meta narrative of capitalism, you raise questions, which is the whole point of postmodernism, and you try to seek answers through the marginalized voices. Now, a bleak advancement of this incredulity towards postmodernism is what I see as hyperreality. So, as all of us know, hyperreality was coined by the French theorist Jean Baudrillard. So, he tells that hyperreality is a condition where you cannot, distinguish between the reality and the illusion. So, it is a kind of, apocalyptic situation, and the imitations or the reproductions have more power than the originals themselves. So it is very important to talk about hyperreality in this present juncture, because now we see that past 2 months we have talked a lot about meta, because virtual interactions are beginning, even virtual marriages are taking place. So you know this point of time in history, there is a lot of importance to the virtual media, to the virtual reality, VR as we call it. So I think it's important to look into hyperreality right now. And not just virtual reality, but the power of media itself is very, very overarching. So you can see media's influence in almost everything. So media influences big political decisions to our everyday life activities. So people are influenced by media to a very large extent. And John Baudrillard, who he sort of prophesized it. He told that there will be a point of time in history where you will not know what is real and what is the illusion side. So he sorts of tried to tell you that there is the sense of loss of the real. So there's nothing which you can definitely call as real. So I'd like to see this concept in light of the series called BoJack Horseman. So this series, if you have watched it, you would have known that it aired on Netflix from 2014 to 2020. So going into the series is about a former Hollywood celebrity. So there's this horse, and this horse is a celebrity horse, and it has passed its prime right now. So it is not yet famous anymore. So it was a star once, it was a Hollywood star once, but right now it is not famous. And there are other characters who are also connected to Hollywood. So we are sitting right at the prime of Hollywood, right at the prime of the illusion which is created. And you can see that throughout the series, even though the series uses anthropomorphic characters, so you can see the hero of the series itself is a horse, so it's an anthropomorphic series. Even then it criticizes postmodernism, it criticizes the tenets of postmodernism. So this particular episode which I've highlighted is an episode where this star horse eats cheese and it's not very happy with the cheese. But then the media, the paparazzi, take an image of it and they tell that Bojack Horseman is for feminism. Okay, they just try to capture his life and add on a caption to it. They say, okay, he stands for feminism, and Bojack is trying to explain, no, I don't. I did not try to make any sort of bold statement, but people are reluctant to believe that. They believe what is showed in the TV rather than what the statement that the horse makes for himself. So this is a point where you can see that people tend to believe more in on the side of media, more on the illusion side of reality rather than reality itself. And ironically, in the same episode itself, there's this character called Diane who tells that, see, you're putting all the blame on media, you're putting all the blame on the medium, rather, I would say the medium, you're putting the blame on Twitter, you're putting the blame on Facebook, you're putting the blame on television, or you're putting the blame on Meta. But how about take some responsibility? So I think this is a very important, idea in the series, which asks you to take some sort of responsibility, to have some sort of individual agency, because postmodernism is trying to tell you that there is, hyper reality, but then what are you going to do about it? What are individuals going to do about it? So that is a question raised here. And yes, now what about the people, the commoners? So there is this particular episode where this producer guy, Lenny, again, this is a turtle, okay, it's not a human. So this guy, he tells us that, he takes a movie, the movie is about to be released, but then there is a gun violence in real life. So he will not be able to release the movie because they will tell, because you're showing, violence in the movie, violence is replicated in real life. So he does not want that happen or want that to happen. And he tells that, I cannot release the movie right now. So he tells, I'm sick and tired of real life gun violence getting in the way of us telling stories that glamorize gun violence. So again, you can see how media influences real life. And there is so much of influence, but then we are not, talking about the influence. When we talk of hyper reality, we say that the reality is lost, but the illusion part has a great influence and it also has negative consequences on the reality. So again, going back to the condition of postmodernity, the critique there says that the rhetoric of postmodernism is dangerous because it avoids the reality. It tries to, negate everything. It tries to emphasize hyper individualism, and that is the, flaw, or rather, I would say that is the fissure of postmodernism. And coming on to the next slide. So, yeah, so you can see that throughout the series, Diane, this particular character, she serves as the voice of reason. She's trying to tell, that, see, you cannot tell that everything is society's fault. You have to take some kind of responsibility or accountability. And even when we see in the theoretical science, in literary theory and criticism, we can see that Terry Eagleton, the Marxist literary critic, he disagrees with Lyotard in a lot of things because you can easily, negate everything. So there will be no difference between truth and rhetoric. So that is a concern which we have to keep in our mind when we are approaching postmodernism. And the last slide is very important because the form of Bojack Horseman, as I told you, it is set in a very tragic comedy kind of situation, and the world is hyper real, and it is classified as a satcom rather than a sitcom. It is classified as a satcom, and there are anthropomorphic characters. So you can easily call this as a postmodern, series. But then it criticizes all the tenets of postmodernism. It criticizes hyper individualism. It criticizes, the influence of media and how we tend to say, media is like that. Yeah, what can we do about it? So it criticizes this lack of agency, the lack of accountability. And one important thing about the series is it has poetic justice. So in the end, the titular character, Bojack Horseman, he realizes his mistakes. He serves a jail prison. He serves a prison sentence. So you can see that even though throughout the series it has traces of postmodernism in the form of anthropomorphic characters and the tone, but then the idea of poetic justice, this person has done something wrong and he has to take accountability of it, is something which cannot be set according to postmodern criticism. So it criticizes all the tenets of postmodernism. And as Shivangi ma'am was telling us, when you try to raise up your kids, you have to tell them that this is how it is going to be. So you have to be responsible and you have to have a certain individual agency, even if it is going to be a postmodern world. So this idea of hyperreality, which talks about the overpowering influence of media, which is true, very true, because media is influencing us in a lot of ways. But what are we going to do about that? So when we approach John Baudrillard, I think that is also important to talk about individual agency and accountability when we discuss hyperreality. So that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. That was a wonderful presentation. And these days I'm very much interested into web series and I try to dissect it. I'm not a passive consumer. I use various lenses to, dissect theories, like dissect web series as well. And I'm really, really happy to see that there is somebody else who is considering web series as literature as well. So thank you so much. Over to you, Nilanjan, sir.
Yeah, so a very short question to you, Sangeeta. So, therefore, is BoJack Horseman, by trying to challenge postmodernism, is it kind of going back to a Marxian concept of material truth?
Actually, it does not challenge postmodernism per se, but then when you look at certain tenets of postmodernism, when we try to, say everything comes down to the individual, when there is a lot of emphasis on the individual, or when there is no accountability, it challenges certain tenets of postmodernism. It does not take a Marxist point of view per se, but then you can find certain Marxist leanings. Yeah, you can find certain Marxist leanings.
Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation and a wonderful paper. I must say, it was very engrossing and intellectually stimulating. So I guess that is the end of the session, Shivangi, is it?
Yes, Nilanjan,
Yeah.
sir.
So
Yes.
so therefore, I would congratulate all the paper presenters: Shohib Bashir, Prasenjit Singha, Jyoti Priyadarshini, Swagath S. Senan, Maria Sibi, Ankita Chaudhary, and Sangeeta. So all of them have presented their papers very successfully, and their presentation showed their passion and love for academic research. So all the best for your future, and I'm sure that we are going to meet virtually or face to face in the near future, and we will keep this association moving forward. So thank you for inviting me to chair this session, and I congratulate all the paper presenters for their wonderful presentations. So Shivangiji, you can sort of move
Yeah,
forward. Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
so much, Nilanjan. So thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your precious time. That too on a Sunday. We hope to look forward to work together with you in our future sessions as well. And thank you so much and congratulations to each and every presenter. And special thanks to Nilanjan sir. Heartfelt gratitude on behalf of IFEST.
Now,
And
the pleasure is all mine. The pleasure
thank
is all
you
mine.
so much, Nilanjan sir. So presenters, now we